Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with episode 80 of our Reddit series. This one's going to be a little bit different again. It's going to be some r/TodayIF and I have a feeling you're going to love this one. Off the top of my head, it's only the second time we've done this. Having said that, you guys received it really well last time and you did enjoy it, so I hope you guys enjoy again. Now just sit back, relax, and enjoy some people effing up. So yesterday I got a group text from my wife's side of the family that stated there was an emergency family meeting happening that night over dinner at my mother-in-law's house. I immediately had April Fool's spidey senses starting to tingle, but we haven't all gotten together since Christmas, so I overlooked it and said that me and my wife were in. We were last to arrive and it was pretty somber when we walked in. We all sat down at the table and my wife's brother Tim informed the family that his wife Ashley had been having an affair and they're getting a divorce. The affair was with a longtime close family friend named Chris. He lived a block away. Chris's wife Jen had caught them when she came home early one day last week and broke the news to my brother-in-law Tim. Both families have been friends for years. They live less than a block from each other and they have been married for 15 plus years, have 4 kids right around the same age, and honestly, I always thought that both of them were picture perfect families. Hell, all 4 of them and their kids were at our house 2 weeks ago for a barbecue. Anyway, after airing a lot of dirty laundry, their plans to divorce, and how it could affect family functions and opening it up to the group for any questions, there was just silence. I broke the silence with laughter and a slow clap, saying that this is the best April Fool's gag that I've ever seen, but I wasn't falling for it. I told Ashley, and especially Tim, that they need to consider going into theatre because their performances were top notch and the tears seemed genuine. Being the newest member of the family, as my wife and I only married 6 months ago, this was probably not the best thing to say in hindsight. I probably should not have said anything. Everyone in the room looked horrified. My mother-in-law, who had been crying the entire time, lost all composure. She left the room in hysterics and did not return before we left. Tim just shook his head and his cheating wife actually let out a brief chuckle before calling me out for being a dumbass for thinking this was a ruse, then berating me for being so insensitive. The rest of the family just sat in silence, shaking their heads, as my wife also berated me for trying to make a joke out of a serious situation. I am still dumbfounded. In hindsight, I probably should have sat in silence, but I honestly still feel like I was calling out an April Fool's gag. I think if nothing else, this is absolutely the definition of effing something up. Like you couldn't have done anything worse than you just did. I mean, obviously that's not entirely true. A lot of entitled parents do worse things on a daily basis, but that aside, imagine cheating on your husband for all this time, having a full-blown affair, and then having the audacity to go at somebody else for being insensitive. It just seems to me like it's always the people that are in the wrong that put themselves on a pedestal. I don't know, maybe just me, but I think there's more than one person that effed up in this story. In 2014, I worked at a travel plaza on a busy interstate. I was in college and worked full-time, sometimes 10-hour shifts. I loved that job very much, but sometimes dealing with hundreds of customers in a short period of time can be taxing, and the last thing you want to do is eat your lunch or dinner surrounded by customers. So after a few weeks of working there, I decided to bring my lunch or dinner to my car. I ate in my car a few times, and while it was nicer, being right next to the interstate was not exactly a peaceful environment. It was the summertime, and maybe 60 seconds down the road was an elementary school, and the parking lot was empty. I drove my car there and ate my lunch one day, and it was so peaceful. I was able to sit in my car with the windows down and eat and listen to music. Finally, I'd found a quiet place. For the next several weeks, I would take my lunch or dinner break and head to the parking lot. It was so nice. Now, here comes my mistake. I was younger and I didn't have any intentions to do any harm. School started and I still went to the parking lot to enjoy my lunch. I parked at the bottom of the parking lot closer to the road, but still it was quiet and nobody batted an eye. Looking back now, I would never have gone to a parking lot of a school to eat my lunch as it just sounds creepy. I never saw any kids where I was and spent more time focusing on eating and listening to music or podcasts. Fast forward to wintertime, I've been routinely going to the school parking lot to eat my lunch at this point. Nobody ever batted an eye at me or asked me anything or said anything to me. Until the fateful day. I'm sitting and eating my lunch in the parking lot and I randomly look at my driver's side mirror and the unmistakable front of a police car took up my entire mirror. At that point, I didn't know what to do. I put my hands on the steering wheel as I see the cop approaching me. He puts his hand on his gun and asks me what I'm doing. With a mouthful of french fries, I say, eating my lunch? The police officer asks why I'm eating my lunch here, and I tell him that I just want to eat somewhere peaceful. He acknowledged that and knew that I worked at the travel plaza because of my shirt and my overall odor of greasy food. He asked for my identification and radioed in with dispatch to see if I had any warrants or anything like that. After I came back clean, he gives me my license and says, "You know, the ladies in the office of the school have been watching you for months and calling me every time you're here. You're always gone by the time I get here. Finally, I found you here. I'm the SRO, and while I understand you want somewhere quiet to eat, please just find a new place to eat. You're obviously not a threat, but the safety of the students and staff is my #1 priority. We didn't know if you were planning on doing something very, very bad." I told him how much I appreciate him understanding me and that I would find a new place to eat. He looks in the back of my car and sees my firefighting gear. He quizzes me to see if I actually belong to the fire company that's on my bag by asking me to tell him who the fire chief is. After successfully passing his test, he puts his hand out and we shake hands. He wishes me a good day and reminds me again to find somewhere else to eat. I go back to work and tell my best work friend what happened, and he could not stop laughing. He had asked me where I go to eat my lunch a few weeks before this all went down and told me that I was a creep for going there. Well, I guess he's not the only one who thought that. I don't work at the travel plaza anymore, but I drive by the school at least once a week, and every time I do, I think about that fateful day where I was presumed to be planning to do something crazy. I'm very thankful that the police officer didn't jump to conclusions and used his training to hear my story before he did anything else. I respect him, and by effing up, I actually learned some valuable lessons. I think this kind of situation is what people tend to call a little bit of a pickle. Man, sometimes I hate being such a family-friendly person, like there's just so many better words to use, but I mean yeah, this was a pickle nonetheless, right? I suppose what they said at the end of the story is true though. They learn a lesson never to sit in a school car park again looking like a creep. I brought a new Razer Kraken headset about 6 or 7 months ago, and at the time, I didn't realize that there was a volume wheel. So I started to use it when I realized that it felt really quiet. So I unplugged them and put my crappy Sony headphones back in. A couple of days later, I plugged the headphones back in to see if anything had changed, and nothing. So I searched it up on the Razer forums and there were fixes, but nothing worked. So I tried to use it in game when I bent over to get a can of Coke off the ground, when I accidentally turned up the volume wheel, not knowing that I'd done this, and I thought it was awesome. But about an hour later, somehow I accidentally turned it back down, and I thought that it had broken itself again. Skip ahead 6 months or so, and I plugged them in again because why not? And I realized that there's a volume wheel. I turn it up, working, good as new, and I spent the rest of the day feeling like the biggest idiot. You know, I know people are coming on here, putting their humility aside and admitting that they made a mistake, but quite frankly, this guy probably should feel pretty dumb. No, but for real, silly little mistakes happen to the best of us, but a volume wheel on a headset? I can't say that there's many people that forgot that exists. I'm a pretty basic white girl. I'm 21, I like Starbucks, I wear leather leggings and hoodies, I'm blonde, I have a part-time job as a secretary, and so it was not surprising that the guy I'm sort of dating didn't believe me when I told him that I've been kickboxing for the better part of a decade. Instead of going to the gym and jogging, kickboxing has been a way for me to stay active and fit. It kind of pissed me off that he thought I'm making it up to look cool in front of him because he's been trying to get into kickboxing. So I figured, why not have like a fun date at the gym he's been going and kick the heavy bags and have fun. He kinda laughed at the idea, but I made him accept. We got to the gym, I met his gym friends, his coach, and so far, it was going good. The dumbass jokingly said that we should spar and that he'd go easy on me. He told me with sparring gear it wouldn't hurt and it'd be fun. There was no way I'm going to say no to that. My plan was to show him that experience matters and make him believe that I've really been doing this for a long time. But no, the a-hole didn't put any protective gear on and I got mad. So we begin, he's laughing, his friends are laughing and cheering for me like I'm some kid. And I'm just getting more and more pissed off by the minute. The cheering was the boiling point. As soon as my date got close enough, out of nowhere, I decided to head kick him with everything I had. I literally grunted as I kicked him. In the 10 or so years I've been kickboxing, I don't think I ever kicked anyone that hard. He was out cold before he even hit the ground. Needless to say, when he came to his senses, he had no choice but to accept that I've actually been kickboxing for quite some time. I also invited him over to my place tonight and planned to make him dinner to apologize for the KO. Surprisingly, he doesn't hate me and laughed it off. He also accepted the dinner invite, which is a win in my book. I mean, if you're trying to take some kind of positive away from this, at least you can say that she realized that she's messed up in this case, right? But damn, this one's a pretty bad mess up. And I'll tell you, some of the people in the comments on the actual thread just went at this girl for no reason. Like, this dude did challenge to spar her. At the end of the day, they were just sparring and she may have taken it a little bit too far, but I mean, she was egged on, right? I mean, sometimes when you spar, crappy things happen. It's just the way it is. I wouldn't go as far to say as she's a horrible person. She just made a bit of a mistake and there were some pretty bad consequences. Okay, so this actually happened in high school. I wasn't super creative, but I wanted to do something kinda cute. She loved Taylor Swift and we were both in choir together. So I wrote a little card to slip in her choir folder. It had some Taylor Swift lyrics on it, and I don't remember exactly which ones. But what I did was take the letters P, R, O, and M, which was somewhere in the lyrics, and I put those in big green Sharpie so they would stand out against the other lyrics. And then I drew a big question mark at the end of the lyrics. It wasn't meant to be a puzzle or anything, it very obviously said prom standing out from the lyrics. When we got to choir and she opened the folder, she was sitting across the room from me. I watched her find the card and realized that it was from me. She stared at it for a minute, then looked up at me, laughing and shaking her head. I felt so sad. Like, did she think it was a joke that I wanted to go to prom and she didn't want to go with me? After choir, she came over to talk to me and I asked why she shook her head. She laughed and said, "It was cute. I just didn't understand why you put Taylor Swift lyrics on a card in my choir folder and why there was a question mark at the end." And that's when I remembered that my girlfriend was colorblind and dyslexic. She had no idea that the card said prom on it. We still went to prom together, but yeah, not my finest moment. Oh, the poor guy. I actually would have felt so bad if I was in that situation, especially if it didn't click to me that she had no idea what was going on in that card. Like, seeing her sitting there laughing at me, making me feel like an absolute idiot, especially if she was my girlfriend. I just couldn't imagine the absolute heartbreak that this kid would have gone through. On the bright side, at least he would have learned for future what ideas are cute little ideas and what ideas he maybe should stay away from in future. Just the other day, my wife and I were doing laundry and a random college t-shirt showed up. She asked me where I got the t-shirt from and I couldn't for the life of me remember. It wasn't even from the school that I went to. After a few minutes, I remembered that while I was deployed, a friend, an AFROTC instructor, asked me to fly a flag for them to present as a gift to a guest speaker that they were going to have. As a thank you, he sent me several items from the school, including that shirt. You'd think that that would have been enough to convince her, and she just stared at me with a look of bewilderment despite me knowing this story was 100% the truth. A few moments later, I realized that an ex-coworker of mine, a girl, actually attended said school. Realizing this and think she might Google/Facebook the school, I decided to say, and coincidentally, my ex-coworker went to that school as well. Why would I do this? I figured it was better to bring up the coincidence rather than have her find it on her own, causing more suspicion. Oh boy, was I wrong. That is where it all truly went downhill. She became extremely worried because I'd recently gone TDY to the same base that ex-coworker is now stationed at. Since she'd never seen this t-shirt and me trying to scramble to remember where it came from and over explaining things, my wife now thinks I cheated on her even though I 100% didn't. Yeah, this one's a pretty bad F up. Honestly, I don't know why you would voluntarily give that information when most likely it probably wasn't even in the question that you cheated in the first place. Now all you've done is gone and dug yourself a hole that you're probably still trying to struggle to get out of. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of r/TodayIF. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said at the start of the video, this was a little round 2 of TodayIF. I do want to keep mixing things up as much as possible. We've done quite a few different subreddits in the last week or so and I plan on continuing that. As always, every second day will be entitled parents, but make sure to give me a suggestion for not tomorrow's video but the video after that. I'm open to all requests and hopefully we can do a brand new subreddit yet again. That would be awesome. So yeah, if you have something that hasn't been covered on YouTube before or something that you haven't really seen covered on YouTube too much, like for example, I don't think I've seen a video on church drama before we did it, so if we could get something like that, that would be great, but let me know what you guys have anyway. As always though, I do quickly want to remind you guys that you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. We just hit 1,000 followers on Instagram and 500 on Twitter, so I actually haven't made a post on Instagram yet, so leave me some suggestions in the comments as to what my first post should be. They are both at Bumfris though, so make sure to go over there, follow me, send me a message and I'll do my best to respond. Otherwise though, I am going to let that wrap things up for today's episode of TodayIF. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you all tomorrow for an episode of Entitled Parents. Bye.